And welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast.
Welcome.
My name is Michael Cipes. You can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz. And that vampire who just talked is Jeremy Browand.
Hey, yo, it's your boy Madman at Dynasty Madman.
So are you a vampire or are you a 15-year-old rapper?
I'm copying off my kids, man. They're into streaming. And hey, yo, it's your boy Madman. How you doing?
Do your kids say hey, yo, when they're streaming?
I don't know. I don't even know exactly what they do. It's like, hey, it's your boy Diamond. What the hell are you talking
about? Oh, my God. And Shane Manila.
Checo Shane is the worst. We've talked about this before. You're either going to get it right or you're going to get replaced. You know?
What?
I don't know what he's saying right now.
I'm
Scary Shane. Go away, Scary Shane. Bring the other guy back.
I've been trying to decide if I need to keep that little click noise on the show every time we throw it to Shane or not. Because Shane always mutes his mic. And every time we throw it to Shane, you hear this little click. And I edit it out sometimes and I leave it in sometimes.
It could be like my thing. Like, I don't know, every time someone hears a click in real life, they'll think of me.
You know what?
We're gonna bring in Shane now.
Yeah, it's like yeah, what is that thing? Oh God, I can't even think what it's called. When they do something and then the animal does it just because of the noise.
Pavlov's dog. Pavlov's dog.
Is that what it's called? Dog? Dog is in the name of that? Okay.
Yeah, it was the Pavlov's dog's experiment where he would ring a bell and they'd basically he would feed them. But it was a conditioning test. But also, fun thing about that test is he cut out part of their throats, so God. The food would fall to the floor, so they would stay hungry, so that he could keep using the same dogs.
I am so sorry I brought it up. The other
things and more on the next Dynasty Trade.
Also, Pavlov's dog was quoted in a great song from Bare Naked Canadians. No, Bare Naked Ladies, who are Canadian.
Yeah, you're right.
And his greatest gift to us was the Bare Naked Ladies, and he says, "Ring a bell, and I'll salivate." Just like Pavlov's dog.
There you go.
Wait, backwards.
Maybe I'll keep that in instead of the cutting the throat out thing. So,
even both in. I mean, I try to. I want to inform our listeners on many different areas. I mean, if we could just have a podcast on philosophy and stuff like that, that'd be great.
You know what? I did see somebody on Twitter the other day ask, kind of similar to this, when you hear that HBO noise, that boom, what show do you immediately think of after you hear that? Is that what your answer was? The Wire?
And it makes me sad because The Wire used to come on Sunday nights. I think at 10 o'clock. And as soon as it would play off with that at the end, where the HBO thing would do at the end too, I'd go, shit, the work week starts tomorrow.
Yeah, man, Sunday nights are brutal.
For me, it's funny. My first, like, you answered it right away. My answer right away was Sopranos. That, for whatever reason, that song just goes. I've watched Westworld and Game of Thrones and all this shit, but every time I hear it, I think of the Sopranos sound.
Yeah, still think of them. Yep.
Yeah, What about you, Jeremy? Do you think of that?
I don't. I didn't watch The Sopranos when it was live, but yeah, no, I don't. The Netflix one gets me though every time.
Oh, that boom thing. Yeah. So, hey, listen, we have a great guest today, and
I mean, you don't have to call me a guest. I'm excited to be here every week.
We know how excited you are every week to be here, but yeah, Jeremy just said who our guest is tonight. Who is it, Jeremy?
Hey, it's Mike Clay, our boy Mike Clay from ESPN.
Awesome. So yeah, he's going to be here in a little bit. But first, before we do that, we always joke sometimes about how news breaks the day we do our show. And like a couple things happened today that happened or didn't happen. I don't even know if it really even happened. So
nothing happened yet.
I know. So our news is brought to you by Fantasy Data. So go over to fantasydata.com and put in the promo code TradesHQ and get your discount over there. And what is the news that you're talking about that did or didn't happen?
I just had to sneeze out some of the COVID, apparently.
God.
Let's see. OBJ is allegedly going to be traded to the Minnesota Vikings for a second and a fifth, is the rumor going around there today, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Vikings just got rid of a wide receiver that I don't want to call him a head case. That's not the word I'm looking for. High maintenance.
Yeah.
So it's be a little weird to think that they'd go out and get a guy that's just as high maintenance. I love both players, but from their perspective, it's a weird fit to go out and then trade for Odell Beckham. Thing about it is that rumor hit sometime early this morning. It is now 9 p.m. So I'm not great with math. That's roughly 19 hours and nothing's happened yet.
No, I'm looking at it now. It was around noon today, so it's roughly 9 hours. But yeah,
Shane's got a cutoff, man. If it gets close to 24 hours, you can forget about it. I could see the Browns wanting to or talking to teams about moving Odell Beckham Jr. I don't see him going to the Minnesota Vikings. It just doesn't sound. It sounds like one of those things that's just a rumor.
Yeah, some people think that nobody's going to start the beginning of the season. So
yeah, man. I'm getting more and more worried about it all the time. I was optimistic, but I honestly wouldn't surprise me if the season's postponed. Yeah. Postponed, cut in half, something drastic. But those old bastards don't want to lose the billions of dollars. That's.
Yeah,
they're going to fight for having it.
Here in Florida, everybody was talking today about how the WWE got labeled essential personnel so that they could keep wrestling.
Well, you know why that is.
Well, yes.
Linda McMahon runs a Trump super PAC.
Well, but the other thing is Vince donated $18 million this week to Trump's thing. And then all of a sudden they're essential business. But did you see today they fired like 30 people? It was weird because they kept doing it one person at a time because they were calling everybody. So it looked like an MFL league where somebody was purging their roster after the season where they just keep dropping people over and over again.
It's the usual thing that rich people do, companies do to make sure that their profit margins. This isn't just keep the business afloat. This is so their profit margins are high.
Yeah.
So when I, tell everyone that you should go murder your masters and take their money, this is why I mention it, because of stuff like this.
We need to change the name of this podcast.
I'm sorry. See, that's too deep. But
and don't murder anybody. Don't, please.
Let's go back to Odell Beckham Jr.
Yes.
So just looking at his career, it's definitely his points per game, his points per game over a seasonal average has dropped. No, not really. I mean, he had a great rookie season. Well, he dropped from 24.6 in his rookie year. A couple years he was at 18.5. Then he spiked again in 2018, and then it dropped to 12.6 last year. But you know what else?
What?
It's also he had the second fewest touchdowns of his career. He only had 4 touchdowns last year.
Jeremy, is that part of why you're saying you don't like to take him as high as people are taking him?
I'm part of it. I'm not looking at last year as like that's the ceiling for Odell Beckham Jr. That's the ceiling for Baker Mayfield. There's no way the Browns offense does better than they did last year. Last year was awful in a lot of ways. And, I don't know how much you can blame on Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, I saw him open on routes. I saw him, not get the ball thrown to him. I saw crappy passes, Baker Mayfield with defensive lineman in his face trying to throw off his back foot some stupid prayer of a pass. It was an ugly offense. You kind of want to hit the reset button on it. I'm sure Odell Beckham Jr. is going to start the season off, like years past, and he's fine. And this offense will be able to get him the ball and protect the quarterback. So I think last year I would throw out the numbers last year, when Odell Beckham Jr. was healthy, throw those out and look at the average without last year. That's how I would approach Odell Beckham Jr. because he's not an old guy.
Yeah.
And he should be able to pick up where he left off with the average he had before that stupid last season. So, I think he's worthwhile and sure draft him. But I think, when it was going around Twitter, they see those great catches he made, the living legend, the one-handed pass falling backwards and, into the end zone, the different things he's been able to do. And it's crazy as hell. I mean, some amazing catches, but, he's got to string that together to be, a guy you can count on week in and week out. And I'm just saying guys take him so high and it's really name recognition.
Well, the one guy that did get traded, though, Brandon Cooks, he got traded over to the Texans.
Oh, hold on. I wasn't talking about Odell. So, what do you think his ADP is right now, Odell Beckham Jr.? Or let me ask you this. What would you pay for Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, I agree with Jeremy. I wouldn't pay as high as what other people pay.
I'll be honest. I targeted Jarvis Landry last year, even knowing that Odell Beckham Jr. was coming to the Browns. I mean, I didn't get all crazy about it. I don't know how excited I would get. I wouldn't. I'm not a guy who would trade for Odell Beckham Jr. because I think I'd have to pay too much.
But he's asking what we think his ADP is. So,
okay, let's go back to that. What's not too much? I don't know how much that is. Like if I try to send that on MFL, it won't let me do that.
Well, you tell us what you think. And what do you think? What would you pay for him, Shane?
Well, I know I had an offer last week where someone wanted 2 firsts, 2021 firsts, AJ Green, and something else. I forget, something small, and I turned that down.
I would turn that down too.
Yeah, but I was
way too much.
I would go AJ Green and a 2021 first.
Well, yeah, but what was his ADP? When you were saying his ADP, I think in startups people are still drafting him high, aren't they?
I think he's probably in the 3rd round, but I'm going to go ahead and look at
Oh, when you asked us, I thought you had it in front of you. That's why I was saying.
Well, look, it took me a minute. He is the 24th player overall.
Yeah, so that's so the end of the 2nd round is where he's going.
2nd round.
Yeah. So
at wide receiver, he's the wide receiver 10. So would you take Amari Cooper over him?
I think now I probably would in a startup. I don't know about trades, though. Trades are different than startups. What?
Okay. And I'm using DLF's ADP.
Yeah.
And just looking at this, DeAndre Hopkins is all the way back up to number 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that goes along with what I tried to bring up a minute ago about, they traded DeAndre Hopkins and then they traded for Brandon Cooks over in the Texans. So were you happy with that trade?
Me?
Either one of you guys. I don't care.
I mean, I guess here's the thing. Deshaun Watson's a good deep thrower. And over the last 2 years, he was he was tied for 7th in intended air yards last year. And he was 12th in 2018. Goff was 22nd in intended air yards in last year and then 10th in 2018. The thing is, if Cooks, I don't think no one's worried about the talent, even because even with his numbers being bad last year, no one's worried about the talent. Everyone's worried about the concussion.
Yeah, he's had like 5 of them.
And that's just kind of why I'm hands off unless I can get him really cheap. Looking at the ADP on DLF, he's the 96th player overall.
Yeah. As of when though?
Well, that's what I'm going to say. And that doesn't fully account because it's all April mock drafts that they had, 6 of them.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure some of those took place before he was traded there.
Right.
And that's a great landing spot for him.
Yeah, and everybody loved the landing spot,
But he's a guy I'm afraid of the injuries. You know me with injuries, head injuries. I think I'd pay a mid to late 2nd for him. That's about as high as I'm willing to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a mid 2nd rounder is okay based on the production he could give you, 206, whatever, anything after that. And I think you're getting a value. You're winning that. And of course, you're taking on some risk, but I mean, it's fantasy football. We always have to take on a little bit. But yeah, I think you're cushioned from the injuries, and he might deliver, like a wide receiver or, a fringe wide receiver 1 again. I mean, it's possible. I don't know how long that he can sustain something like that before he gets another concussion. But I think you're absolutely right with the mid-round 2nd for Brandon Cooks.
And here's the thing: if you are going to buy, and I like that because it's not a lot of capital to give up, and it just makes me think of the player Devontae Adams is a much better player than Brandon Cooks. Obviously, he's a legitimate in the running for wide receiver 1 every year, but he's another guy that I was frightened to hell of because of the concussions in 2018, and then he was fine last year. He didn't have any. He had some other issues, but fine since he got rocked quickly in succession within a few weeks of each other. So, I mean, if Cooks is still young, he's only 26. If he can get a season under his belt without any concussions, then, you could sell high or you could just hold on to him knowing that you trade it a mid-2nd for him. So it's worth it if you have a few seconds laying around.
It would be interesting, too, because there's a lot of startups going on right now. It'll be interesting to see where next month's ADP lands with a full month of ADP now with him over at the Texans, where he will rise. Because it sure seems
it'll be nice to see where Deshaun Watson's passing game lands this season with the 3 guys he's got to throw to right now. He could end up having, with the injury history of the 3 guys and just the way, that what that team has in place right now, it they could all end up on IR.
They could. He's going to have some weird, funky stat lines. You already know it. He's going to have like a 15 for 35 game for 380 yards and 6 touchdowns or something. It's just going to be, you know what I mean? Like each guy's going to have 3 receptions for 180 yards. But there's definitely, I wonder how many games you'll see him and Fuller both playing.
It's funny. A lot of people like got scared of him when D-Hop left and like his value was dropping, and then they signed for Cooks, and then a lot of people were like, woohoo, you know? So it will be interesting to see how it works out. You know, the other one, it's funny. We have 2 other things on the news, and we do have Mike Clay coming in, but real quick, one of them is one of those kind of things that just happened like literally before we got started, but all these rumors, and he was trending worldwide, was that O.J. Howard might be moving. And don't we hear this like every year that Shane is like putting the prayer hands up in front of his face?
Yeah, Shane hopes he gets traded because he knows he's not going to do anything there in Tampa Bay. You know, the Patriots tried to get him. That was rumored. Remember last year, the Patriots trying to trade for O.J. Howard, and nothing ever came of that.
Can you imagine if he went to the Patriots after Tom Brady has left the Patriots to come to the team he's on right now?
They need some help, man. That team, you know, you heard old quarterback guru Mark Schofield tell us that the Patriots were lacking in talent, man. A lot of losses. So they definitely need some weapons there. What were we going to say, Shane?
I was just going to say, I'd love him there. I mean, his biggest competition would be Julian Edelman, who, you know,
a 54-year-old slot wide receiver.
Yeah, he's going to get injured, but he's no downfield threat. N'Keal Harry, who, I mean, in his limited action, really didn't look that great. But you know, he was injured last year, so I don't want to just act like he's dead. But even outside of that, who is there?
No, there's nobody to write home about it all.
The only threat, if Jarrett Stidham's starting next year and OJ Howard's there, OJ Howard might see 130 targets.
It's going to be a long season for the Patriots. You better have an outlet like OJ Howard to throw to, huh?
It's so great.
OJ Howard?
What?
What's that?
Are you buying OJ Howard?
I already have OJ Howard everywhere. You guys know that. So
it's funny that guy's become a value this season in startups because of how much, you know, another year of letdown, right?
Yeah.
I think where he's going and the kinds of things I've done, even a best ball draft just recently, if he ends up being somebody that delivers some fantasy promise, he's being drafted really low, man.
He really is.
This is funny. OJ Howard went in this best ball after Jack Doyle, right? Blake Jarwin and Eric Ebron, and right before Dawson Knox, all the way down there, man. All the good tight ends were already taken. Like 16 guys. So if you get him there and he goes to a team like the Patriots and he does well, my God, man, that's a freaking steal. Before Chris Herndon.
So he was the tight end 17 in that draft. I mean, I guess I understand that, you know what I mean? But it was only one bad year. Is the thing that I don't understand is people are acting like the guy's been a bum his whole career. He had a really good rookie season. He had a really good second season, you know, that was just hampered by injuries. It was really just last year when, you know, Bruce Arians got there and decided that there's no reason to feature, you know, a massive tight end with blazing speed. Why would we want to do that, right?
Exactly.
But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I mean, he's still just 25 years old. He's going to be, 26 at some point next year. At tight end 17, I'll buy him over Jack Doyle.
Dude, I think it was like tight end 20. Yeah, I would buy him over Doyle and all those guys too, Ebron.
Yeah, I like Jarwin. I do like Jarwin, but I'm still taking him over Ebron, and I'm definitely taking him over Jack Doyle. We've seen what Jack Doyle is like. I don't need my tight end to be a consistent top 12 guy because consistency isn't a real thing, as many other people have noted before, but especially the tight end position. I mean, it's touchdown, boom or bust most weeks. So, you know, Jack Doyle is going to score 15 points one week and 0 points the next. Like
and I expect Phillip Rivers to use him a little bit, so I'm not scared off. But yeah, there's no way I take him over OJ Howard.
No, not in a million lifetimes. Not me. that's somebody else. If they want to do that, they can do that.
I got him in some trade before the Tom Brady thing where it was more like a throw in. The person just threw him in, So it would be interesting. We did have another player on the news, but let's bring in Mike Clay because this other player, Joe Mixon, being a holdout, we have some trades and some things that involve Joe Mixon, so we'll talk about all that then. But in the meantime, let's bring in Mike Clay, which would be awesome. And while we're doing that, Shane, tell everybody how they could become patrons.
Oh, yeah. You go to patreon.com and you type in DynastyTradesHQ, or you go to the Twitters, go to the Twitter bot on the Dynasty Trades HQ handle, and there's a lovely little link there. And we just got way to go week. We had more than a few join this week. Just off the top of my head, there's another Sean in there.
All right.
Alex. I'm too old for this. There's a Brian that just joined. Yeah, it's getting to the point though where we've got like doubles and triples of people's names, and it's a little nerve wracking because I'm like, I gotta keep everybody straight. But yeah, look, you know what we do? We give you those bonus episodes every week. You get the uncensored episode of this show. You get written content. You get the group me chat, which is the most lively chat in the world.
Say that, man.
Filled with fantasy football stalwarts, like our good buddy Scott Connor and Outhouse and Justin. I don't want to put anyone down. There's just everybody in there is just awesome.
I was going to say, if you're going to start naming names, we'll be here for a while.
Yeah, we'll be here all night.
Also, Jeremy and I actually talked about something earlier tonight before you jumped in, Shane, about how all these people are all doing these Zoom meetings and all that. And we were thinking about maybe around draft weekend time, sometime, doing some kind of Zoom chat thing with some of our patrons, which could be kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'd like to get a bunch of those guys on and talk to them and record and actually make it our patron episode that week.
So maybe
I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't been with a woman in a while. I'd love to be with anyone at this point.
Nice. That's great.
Okay, well, on that note, go join our patron. Yeah, go become a patron, and we'll let you know about anything special we're gonna do. And in the meantime, let's hear. Oh man, it's so awesome. We have our great guest, Mike Clay, is here. Why is that funny, Shane?
He didn't know. We're going to have you on as the guest.
You're our guest today. I know you didn't realize that.
Okay, fine. You guys want to make fun, but we're already back, and we're here with our guest, which I guess you guys know. He knows he's the guest, but we're here with Mike Clay from ESPN. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys. How's it going?
Great, man. Thanks for joining us today. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, it's so weird that it's been maybe 9 months or so since we all met in Canton last year at the Midwest Expo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that this year, right? It's just crazy time right now. We're all kind of at home working and grinding, but maybe a little extra time to prep for 2020. Maybe we'll all do a little bit better in fantasy football this season. Who knows?
Hopefully.
Are you doing everything from home, like with the ESPN and all that kind of stuff? You do everything just at home right now?
Yeah, it's all remote. We're getting all set up for the upcoming draft. We're doing video from here. And honestly, guys, this is the time where I kind of hibernate anyway, right? I go into my my man cave here, and I'm doing a ton of prep for 2020. I already have a full volume of projections for the entire league, offense, defense, punters, kickers, you name it. It's all out there already for pre-draft. And some people ask why I even do that. But you have to start somewhere, right? I mean, I can't wait till after the draft to kind of start working on this stuff. It takes months to get it all ready to go, whether it's, again, both sides of the football, rankings, projections, depth charts, all that stuff ready, looking at salary stuff and dynasty rankings. It just all kind of has to come together at some point. So we're ready to go, closing in, finishing up some stuff here and ready for the draft.
That's awesome. Are you doing anything with the virtual rookie draft next week?
I mean, certainly on the analysis side, yeah, I do the live fantasy reaction blog on the site. So I'll be doing that as the picks come in. I'll be pumping out live projections and analysis right on ESPN.com and Twitter.
It's interesting what you said about projections, though. That got us fired up because we talked right before the show and we realized the questions that we had from our listeners that we maybe needed to talk to you about something else instead, right, Mike?
Well, yeah, one of the things we were looking at on your biography over at ESPN, it mentions how you were like the creator of a lot of these really advanced metrics and statistics and data that people are using in fantasy now. And one of them I saw was the ADOT, which is one of Shane's favorite statistics. Shane's shaking his head. He uses that all the time in player comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time in the early days of Football Focus. So they were charting the games, all of them, and no one else really had that. I had access to all this data, and look, I'm not the smartest guy by any means, but I had all the information, and I was trying to process it. They weren't really doing that at that time on the NFL side. They were just collecting it. So I was lucky. I started processing that and came up with all kinds of new things. I mean, 10 years ago, if you were in, social media, on fantasy Twitter or wherever it was, reading content, you never snaps or routes referenced. I mean, that's just common now. You can't really do analysis without talking about snaps and routes. And yet a decade ago, that wasn't there. So I used to get that data on Monday, and I would just start typing up snap counts and route counts and just putting them on social. And PFF didn't. I got kind of slapped on the wrist a little bit for doing that, but it's like you have to get it out there, right? That information is so important and game changing, and now you see a decade later that it's all over. So for
fantasy football in general, but us in Dynasty, we just eat that stuff up. Any metrics we can get our hands on to separate us from our competition and just help us in our rookie drafts and we're all excited about that next week to see where these players go. But yeah, that's we love to talk to people about metrics.
Shane's not a big fan of IDP, but I know that you speak about IDP too. But I think one of the ones that says here you created the wide receiver versus cornerback matchups. I use that statistic all the time. I use that information all the time in my rankings of wide receivers and stuff.
Yeah, same thing. Again, just have information and who is covering who, and figured this is incredibly helpful for me. So let's create a chart. Let's create content that uses it. So again, just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, and I'm glad it's taken off the way it has. I mean, I did that article I think for 1 year, and then it was everywhere the year after. People just picked it up and ran with it. So it's just awesome that what I really love now is I can kind of settle back a little bit because people way smarter than me industry and able to process station at a way higher level way with takeaways we can use to make better decisions. I'm just glad it's in their hands now, and I can kind of read their work, and we all become smarter.
I'm sorry, I was just going to cut in here, Michael. But so what I like about ADOT is that it's predictable. It's prediction based. Yeah. What were people using as for wide receivers before ADOT, where they just I think this guy's the best, so this is why I'm going to draft him?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that, because I think in the first sentence of the introduction article to that, which actually won a WA award, because that was such a new concept at the time, I think the first sentence mentions that, people are using yards per reception to kind of determine how guys are utilized. And I mean, to pick from that, right? I mean, if a guy's wide is 9, he's probably a slot guy, a short area guy. Like an Edelman or, Welker, Austin Collie, something like that. Whereas if it's 9, it's probably like Tyrell Williams or Malcolm Floyd or Deshaun Jackson. You know that they're a vertical speed guy. But the problem is by just utilizing YPR, you're distorting. It's distorted based on maybe one long play.
So just like yards per reception can be inconsistent. Mike Clay's internet can be inconsistent too sometimes.
And Mike, I know we wanted to ask Mike about his, Cipes Blitz. We wanted to ask Mike Clay about his projections, his dynasty rankings, which are hugely useful to us, in dynasty football, and maybe what kind of metrics or what Mike looks at when he's doing his projections and rankings for dynasty. What metrics are most important? And obviously, we're probably going to be talking about ADOT, but I'm just curious how you, Mike, throw those things in as solid metrics when you do your projections.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be totally honest with Dynasty, it's a lot more subjective, right? I mean, I think with projections for be more objective and utilize, things like, your anticipated ADOT, yards per carry, all that kind of stuff gets baked into that. Whereas with Dynasty, you have to be a little bit more reasonable and think forward to a few years, right? Just because you think a guy might not have the greatest season, and think about maybe Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, not a great quarterback situation this year, and maybe you have to dock them for that. But that doesn't mean that they're still a good dynasty asset over the next 3 or 4 seasons. So I don't go heavy on metrics. I mean, I look at things like age, projected years left in the league, draft pedigree. Those things are what's really important. And obviously their short-term value this season is a huge variable. That's the most important variable. But there are other things as well, like age and experience, that matter too.
But for you personally, do you play more fantasy, dynasty, DFS, or none of the above, or do you just analyze it?
Oh, Dynasty is my favorite by far. I love my Dynasty leagues more than anything. I like being able to draft a guy or acquire a guy and know that you have him for the long term. There's no greater feeling than like going in the last season with a Juju Smith-Schuster or once Chris Godwin out and you have him on your team, or having I know you guys want to ask this question a little bit, but a guy who is one of your favorite sleepers that pans out. A couple years ago, Carson drafted him everywhere. I loved during draft season, and then he pans out on every. I mean, DJ Chark is the guy with something going on. I loved him last season. Why was there no second round pick with that speed combo entering his second season to start for the Jags? I mean, and he was free. He was free in everywhere. He was a late flyer in dynasty startups, and season long he was undrafted. Guys like that, hitting on them and knowing you have them for a long time. A.J. Brown's another guy I liked a lot. Just having those guys, of what better feeling knowing that they're not going for the next, some guys for the next decade.
Was there something in particular about DJ Chark that caught your eye before the season that made you think that he was going to hit?
Yeah, I mean, really nothing other than I just laid out. I mean, it was pedigree, day 2 pick. He didn't play much. He buried in his first season. Knew he was positioned to play as essentially their top perimeter wide receiver in that Jags offense. And again, he had the size speed combo, right? The guy can run a 4.3 at that size. I mean, there was so much to like. And again, if he was going in the 6th round of drafts or 8th round of drafts, maybe he's not as appealing. But the fact that he was so incredibly cheap with that pedigree, I mean, it was a no-brainer just to throw him on the end of your bench. In fact, on Fantasy Football Now, before week 1, I was asked the question, who's the guy that's going undrafted in most leagues that people right now setting their lineups for week 1 on Sunday morning of week 1 can grab, throw on the end of their bench, and it's going to pay off big. And that was my answer to Jake Sharp for all the reasons that I just laid out.
Yeah, he might have been one of the best values last year. Got him in, even in redraft late. People just were sleeping on him, like you said. You call him a sleeper. It's true. Last season they were, and he helped I'm sure win a lot of title games. Keeping with the theme, and you brought it up, playing Dynasty and loving, drafting the right rookies. The NFL rookie draft is next week. From Goodell's basement to the rest of the world, we're going to be watching that. With how you look at these players, are there rookies that get you excited in this class that you're maybe going to try to get in your drafts? And could be sleepers, but just in general, what players are you looking at? Do you love in this class on offense?
It's Zach Moss. Guy taking a lot of sleepers in recent years, like Jordan Howard and Chris Carson. Kareem Hunt was obviously that started to build those reasons. David Montgomery was one last year. He hasn't panned out. He could turn in his second season. But Moss is one of my favorite sleepers for sure. Jed Anderson and DJ Dallas are 2 guys I'm keeping an eye on at running back. And then, wide receiver, I don't even know if we need to talk about because there's so many. Guys like Michael Pittman and Denzel Mims, you're seeing them as of late. You're going deeper to like Chase Claypool or maybe Antonio Gibson, who receiver. I mean, there's so many options at that position.
Mike, do you have any opinion on Henry Ruggs, since there's a lot of chatter about him being the first wide receiver off the board in the draft?
You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm kind of curious, and I want to look into this a little deeper, but I feel like the running 4.3 40s or better, certainly in that range, have really, really struggled with durability out of the gate, right? You're seeing a lot doing, I almost worry, like, is he going to play in more than 6 games this year? It just feels that way with the guys as of late. It's incredible if you look at the list of these 40 superheroes and years and how they've struggled to stay on the field. So that makes me a little nervous. And again, I don't want to have any strong conviction there until I dive into it a little deeper. There's no doubt with success in the NFL, and he is going to be a first-round pick barring disaster. So,
yeah, I mean, so we'll just reiterate the point though. But Mike was talking about durability concerns. Something that he wants to look into. But yeah, it definitely seems like John Ross, Marquise Brown,
exactly.
There were guys that were drafted, I think, overdrafted in the NFL and in fantasy. Yep. But yeah, I'm assuming it has something to do with just their skill set of just being burners. Like, it's not the other wide receivers that typically are going down. At least that's what it seems like. So I got to agree with Mike there.
And you don't want to draft an outlier either, like based on a Tyreek Hill, because most of those guys aren't Tyreek Hill. Most of those guys are John Ross, Marquise Brown, a combination of things there. They don't hold up as well as Tyreek Hill's been able to do.
Mike, one last thing that we wanted to ask you about before we wrap everything up. We spoke about it at the beginning of the show because it was like big news all day today about that Odell Beckham was going to be traded, and a lot of people were saying he was being traded to the Vikings. Do you have any idea, any opinion, any insight or anything about that?
Reason to believe he's actually going to be traded. That report, I believe, was from a fake account, so I'm not too worried about it. We've heard Beckham rumors all off season. It seems like a long shot. He's going to leave Cleveland, so no, I'm not gonna worry about that right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
At one point, for some reason, people were quote tweeting or retweeting a fake Wojo account, which is a basketball account.
Yeah.
From ESPN. So that's always interesting. It's not even like a good, even if it's like a fake tags or a fake Mike Clay account, all right, I can see falling for it for football, but you're falling for a fake basketball account.
I guess everybody's at home with a lot of time on their hands.
I guess.
But Mike, going back to the original question then that we asked you, with all of these different statistics and metrics you created, is there anything, I know you said you could sit back and watch now, but is there anything that you would like to see become a mainstay in fantasy or dynasty? Any kind of metric or anything that's not out there yet?
That's a good question. I think things like, first of all, I want to see depth of target out there more often, right? You do see it once in a while, especially on NBC, because they have the partnership with Pro Football Focus. But, you want to see that out there a little bit more often. And, I've been working with OTD in recent years, which shows essentially expected touchdown total. I do it for OFP as well, which is expected fantasy point total, and the O is for opportunity adjusted. So basically it just looks at how you're being utilized. If you're a target near the goal line is more valuable than a target at the 50-yard line. So splitting them up into expected fantasy point total and expected touchdowns, I think gives you a really good idea of who's going to regress to the mean and who's can sustain their production. So I've used those for years. We post the charts at ESPN Plus every single week with updates to both. And it's been super valuable. So finding a way to make them easy to process for the mainstream is the key. This stuff can be complicated, but super valuable information.
Yeah, that's great. And that answer came out perfect. You didn't break up the whole time. So that was good.
Yeah, it's such a good way to look at things. I mean, really focusing on the most important catches, the most important targets. That seems like really good data.
I like that too, because I like ADOT, I like air yards, but yeah, normalizing touchdowns is something that would really be awesome if that was. I'm gonna have to start citing that now in articles that I write.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on with us and everything. I know we've had a little bit of technical problems here, and it does seem like we talked about at the beginning that we might not be seeing each other in Canton this year, but hopefully everybody will be safe and we'll get around to doing it again next year.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Same to you guys. Apologies for the internet issues. What else is new up here in Connecticut? I guess we're actually getting a little snow today. Here in the middle of April. So maybe that's part of the problem. But anyway, I appreciate your patience, guys. Good chatting, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Mike. Really appreciate you. We'll see you out there.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Bye.
Take care.
All right. Yeah, that was really cool. It's pretty awesome to have him on as a guest. We did have some trades here on the sheet that we were going to talk about. And I think we also left off, there was a piece of news that we left off too, the Joe Mixon thing about him.
Joe Mixon holdout.
Yeah, about him holding
Based
out.
Off a tweet that I saw online. Like, I haven't seen any of his people come out and say anything like that. I just love when these tweets come out that it's like, Joe Mixon is willing to sit out until he gets a new deal from the Bengals. Oh, it's a report. Who's a report? Is it from his cousin? Like, just and honestly, who cares if he's willing to hold out? We still have, what month are we in? We're in April. There's 5 months, even if the season were to start on time, we've got 5 months until the season starts. He'll be back.
It's only June.
He'll be back, people. Calm down.
Yeah, technically everybody's holding out. I did a trade in that league. I have plenty of running backs, but my best wide receiver was DJ Moore and Kenny Galladay, but I have a whole bunch of running backs. So he sent me this offer this morning, and it was, he asked for my Joe Mixon and DJ Moore, and then he offered me Michael Thomas and Landon Collins, the safety from Washington.
What?
And it's an IDP league, and Landon Collins is the number 2 scoring safety in that entire league. Shane's looking around in circles.
Well, okay, so it's an IDP league. First thing, and I always have to mention this, you shouldn't be in IDP leagues, kid.
Oh, shut up. Don't listen to Shane. IDP leagues are way better.
Be in IDP leagues.
Oh, my God. It's so much better.
So you got the wide receiver 1 in football, right?
Yes.
And then I don't know, what do you call him? The S2?
He was the number 2 scoring safety in the league. And in that league, defenders score more points than offensive players.
That's wrong, isn't it? Is that right?
Well, not all, but in a top 32 players in the league, it's half offense, half defense, which usually it's not that way, you know.
Is Landon Collins even that good?
In this league, he is, thanks to John Orr. It's one of John Orr's
per tackle.
It's one of John Orr's. I'm in 2 different John Orr IDP leagues that are really awesome the way he scores things. But yes, so go ahead.
I'm gonna go with I don't like it because of one of the players that you got as a defensive player.
So you'd rather have Joe Mixon and DJ Moore?
Yeah, I think I could find a rough approximation of Landon Collins scoring off the waiver wire or cheaper.
For me, like I said, it wasn't even about the Landon Collins part. I have like 7 running backs and I can only start 4. And
is that trade on the sheet? Is that trade?
Yes, it's on the sheet. Yep. Yeah, it's on the sheet. Yep.
Right there. Say it.
No.
Fans, if you can't say fans, oh my God, I'm sorry, people that are listening, you can't say, I was pointing, I highlighted it on the sheet for everyone. So I hope you guys saw that.
And I will tell you this, while Jeremy's looking at it, I just went to the league. I just went to the league and I went to the overall scoring in the league for last year. The number 7 player was Michael Thomas, and the number 12 player overall was Landon Collins.
Oh, well then.
Yeah, I want the Michael
Thomas.
Thomas.
Where was DJ Moore and Joe Mixon, though?
Let's see here. Not in the top 32.
Either of them?
No.
What's wrong with your scoring?
It's not my scoring. It's John. It's John Orr's scoring. Yeah. So all right. So you think that, and then Jeremy thinks the other way. But you know, we talk about some of these trades all the time, and it's not really about whether somebody won or lost a trade. It's just about the players that are involved and what we think about those players.
It's always about who won or lost the trade.
For you, it is.
But first, you're last.
But if you're not first, you're last. But yeah, I mean, look, Michael Thomas is still going to see 160 targets, 180 targets, whatever, somewhere in that range next year. Landon Collins, whatever. Michael Thomas is still going to see the same work that he's seen in the past. There's no reason, just because Emmanuel Sanders is there. Emmanuel Sanders will probably just soak up the targets that Traquan Smith and other guys like him in the past have gotten. Kamara's still there, Jared Cook's still there, but there's enough to go around for all of them. So I mean, Michael Thomas, obviously he's a top 5 wide receiver. DJ Moore is going to be a top 5 wide receiver, and Joe Mixon has at least 2 years of top 10 running back production in him.
It's pretty cool because I've ended up with Michael Thomas in a lot of leagues, including a couple startup things that Jeremy and I did. We got Michael Thomas. Yeah, but I am looking here, when I go to just the wide receivers, like you asked, instead of where he is, Michael Thomas was number 1 and DJ Moore was number 13 in this league, at least. So,
okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So I don't know about the top 32, but
I don't know. Most trades where someone sends you Michael Thomas, you probably won.
Pretty much. That's what
you're
I
trying to
too.
win today. I get it. Thomas and Collins those are league-winning players right now. Mixon and Moore, maybe as early as next year, can help a team too, and then on. But I mean, it's clearly to me a trade where FF Blitz wants to win straight away, and Chunk is getting some younger guys and maybe a little more patient about it.
Yeah.
Not to say that Mixon and Moore isn't going to help his team win, but he's given up tremendous amount of points there in order to get Mixon and Moore. That's all I'm saying.
And it goes to what you said to me last week, Shane. You were like, "This team almost won, and you're trading for Teddy Bridgewater." I did almost win, and now I added Michael Thomas, so I was happy about that.
So wasn't your quarterback like you traded for Teddy Bridgewater as your second quarterback? So your quarterback couldn't have been great.
Right. Well, my second quarterback, remember, it's now Phillip Rivers, and yeah. So we did have another Joe. Jesus! Actually, on the show sheet, we actually have 2 more Joe Mixon trades.
Oh,
I just saw all this stuff. So I traded away Joe Mixon. Are you saying you traded for Joe Mixon in some of your trades?
I have 1, 2. Let's just go ahead and move these around. And we'll move some of these other trades to the patron show.
Oh, okay. All right. So then,
all right.
Why don't you move the trades that aren't involved with Joe Mixon to the Patreon show? And after we do, I was gonna say after we do these Joe Mixon trades, we'll be done with the show, and then we'll do the Patreon show.
You're
good.
So who did I make this trade with? I think I made it with. I'm gonna go look at transactions actually.
Well, this can actually help in me titling the episode. The fact that we have 3 trades on the show sheet and Joe Mixon is involved in all 3.
Mixing it up.
Hey, there you go. That's a good title.
In the Superflex Army League that I think we're all in.
Yeah.
We're all in that league.
Yeah.
Myself and another individual, our good buddy Super Duper Flex, Bill, made a trade.
Yes.
And this came about because while I was walking the other day, I just said, hey, if you're reading this tweet, you're probably in a league with me, so send me a trade offer.
I saw that tweet. And then other people were saying, well, why don't you send me a trade offer?
If anyone to. That's not how it works. I was doing stuff. I was walking and reading. And so I got like 76 trade offers. But this one, I went ahead and accepted right off the bat. So he offered me, nope. Yeah, no. He offered me Joe Mixon for Noah Fant in the 106. Or how other people might say that. He offered, no, never mind.
So it was a 14-team Superflex with a 1.5 tight end premium on tight ends. So you gave up Noah Fant, which, again, it's a second-year tight end that may or may not be something that you can use to win, and the 106, which, what do you think you could get in that 14-team Superflex at 106?
Well, I'm going to assume Barrow and Tagovailoa are gone.
Okay.
I'm also going to assume, because it's a 14-team, that Herbert's gone as well.
Oh, wow. In the first 5 picks?
Yeah, because it's a 14-team.
Right.
So that means basically he's going to have his pick. He's not going to get Jonathan Taylor. He'll be off the board.
So
but he'll have his choice between J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or...
Well, there's only 2 spots. So if it is J.K. Dobbins or DeAndre Swift. So maybe you're trading J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, and Noah Fant for Joe Mixon. Jeremy's shaking his head up and down. What do you think, Jeremy?
I think that this is a trade that really depends on who you have on your team now, what you're trying to do, what the points, what the scoring system is. But I personally think I would take the 106 and Noah Fant than Joe Mixon. But it's not something that I could go the other way depending on how much I needed a Joe Mixon, right? So I don't think there's a right answer, but I prefer the Fant and 106 side, surprisingly. I'm actually surprised I'm saying that, but I'm salivating over what I can get at the 106 combined with Noah Fant, and you can have Joe Mixon and his holdout.
See, but that's funny too, because that's what kind of goes on, especially right now.
It's tough, man.
We've had a couple guests in the last month or so that always say, don't trade your picks away right now or whatever. We are so close.
Till the draft,
shit. Yeah. Technically, if the world was the way it should be, I'd be on a plane in 6 days from now going to Vegas, and unfortunately, I'm not doing it. But you're right. It would be so much fun to be like, ooh, the 106, and especially what you just said, Shane, about that so many quarterbacks can go before that. But I think, Jeremy, when you say it depends on your roster, pretty much every one of these trades always depend on what your roster,
This one's just that close to me. It's kind of, believe it or not, I'm looking at that, and not everyone's going to agree, but I'm looking at that as being a thin margin between which side is the better side. It's tight end premium, so it's not like Noah Fant's not valuable. And I have some teams where I could use Noah Fant, and I could use what I get at the 106 and maybe want those two guys that I'm thinking I'm plugging into my starting lineup over the one guy I'm plugging in my starting lineup. If it wasn't that way, you're thinking, hey, Noah Fant, I can plug in my starting roster. Joe Mixon, I can plug in. Then it's not so clear. But hoping that you get the 106 to also become a starter, I think I marginally lean that way. But this is one of those trades where I could find myself making, taking either side of this. Yeah. Just depending on situation, because Joe Mixon is a hell of a running back. He's young. He's got, time on his side. He catches the ball. Those are my favorite running backs. So it's not like I don't like him for fantasy. It's just that other side seems to be speaking more to me.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that trade that I did with Joe Mixon. I didn't say it, but we said it last week. That's a 14-team league also. But I have so many running backs and I can only start 4. I was willing to trade away Mixon. If I didn't have so many running backs, then maybe I wouldn't have made that trade. I would have made it hold on to him. So
you might not get as much too, Mike. Shane's given up Fant and the 106 for Joe Mixon, right? Maybe if he waits until the draft rolls around and by some miracle one of those quarterbacks that somebody really wants is still available at 106, it's possible to turn Noah Fant and the 106 maybe into more, I don't know, than Joe Mixon. How people get eager. I certainly don't think that you're wrong in trading that pick now, because it could these guys that say hold on to your picks until the draft, that shit backfires, because other people are making deals to get those picks before the rookie draft.
Absolutely.
They're getting the 105 and the 107, and then they don't need your 106, the most eager guys to acquire the pick. So it can backfire. It's backfired on me before, trying to sit on that shit for too long.
Well, and that's why what you just said too, the way you said it before, where you're like, oh, I'm kind of excited. We're what, 7 days from the draft. So the closer you get to the draft, you're getting more and more excited about it as well,
Yeah, I am, man. And I don't have a lot of first round picks. I've traded them away in many places for, veteran players. And now, I'm itching to have that 106 too. I mean, usually that was the Shane of old, remember? Yeah. He would acquire picks and juke and jive and get that, and he'd come away with so many first and second round picks. And now look at this, he's trading away 106 and Noah Fant, his favorite tight end in last year's class, for Joe Mixon. I'm kind of surprised you did that. I also saw, story for another time, but I also saw you trade your boy Carson Wentz today.
And let's hold that to.
It ended up being a multifaceted trade. We can maybe touch on that in the patron episode.
Yeah.
Patrons, you miss out on some of this good stuff. Shane traded away what I would think is his favorite quarterback on what we know is his favorite NFL football team, the Philadelphia Eagles. 4 picks, and he juked and jived. He ended up coming away with Deshaun Watson, I think, in the end.
Yeah,
that was good.
And it's funny because I was going to
say that's a patron thing. That's high end. Like I
absolutely
people to be like Obi-Wan Kenobi. No,
we were going to save the Wentz for the Patreon. Yeah, definitely.
It's just the only thing that's important to remember to take away from any of these trades, though, is like you should never be beholden to any players on your roster.
Yeah.
Because I love Joe Mixon, but I've traded him away in 2 leagues this week. I've traded for him in 2 other leagues. I love Noah Fant, but I've traded him in about 6 leagues this year, since the end of the season, because I know people feel the way I do, that he's gonna perform great next year. But when I think I can get a more sure thing, or he's part of a trade where I'm trying to grab a player, I'll definitely do it. And same thing with Carson Wentz, just no player. There's no player that's untouchable.
It's funny, over time being with you guys, it used to always be, I used to always say, I want the guys that I like to watch, that I want my team, because I'm going to sit and watch football Sunday.
With that strategy, I just talked on another podcast about how you do that, and then like Shane was saying, that was the disparity, that you do that, and that's not wrong, and you don't really diversify players a lot. You have a lot of the guys that you like, and then guys that you don't target, you don't have. You watch them, you root for them, and then I want to win too, and I don't always have to have all my favorite players on my teams, but you can certainly win either way.
Absolutely.
In some teams, I've done both in the same draft. Come away with guys I had to have, and then drafted guys just because I thought they were the best player at the time. We have a lot of picks, but I like that Shane's diversifying like that. He's not just acquiring Noah Fant, just acquiring Joe Mixon. He's gotten to the point where he's willing in one league to move that player, but acquire that same player in another league, in the interest of making his team the best that it can be, and not just liking your players. It's almost like a metamorphosis to a high-end dynasty player in a way, to think that way about winning.
Well, my point, the reason I brought it, the reason I even said what I said, though, is I have been doing that more with other leagues, because now that you guys have got me into more leagues than I wanted to be in, I've actually done that in some of these leagues where I'm getting players that I don't have on other teams. But my point, but my point was, for my home league, which is the one that I care the most about, I still kind of focus that way with some of the players. But and it's cool. Shane's right. Just trade when you want to trade. Also, Shane, everybody knows you. You trade sometimes just because you want to trade. You're ready to do it.
So I used to do this, and I really don't do this anymore. So I used to go check my leagues. So if I got an offer, I'd be like, I think I'm light on this guy. So maybe I'll go ahead and get him so that I have him in a league, or I'm heavy with this guy. So, maybe I need to move him in a league. And I think, that would affect my trade. Whereas instead of just looking at the trade in a vacuum, I hate that term. We need to come up with a cooler term. But instead of just looking at that trade in the context of that league, it's like, I need to look at it in the context of my overall ownership of that player. Yeah. So I stopped doing that now. Like, I have no idea how many of each, how many in each league I have. I haven't looked at that at all this all season. The
one thing I have done is a little bit similar to that, but like Jeremy said, he's noticed some trades that I've done. If I get a guy in a league that I don't have anywhere else, sometimes I go to those other leagues and try to get the guy just because I got him in the one league that I got him in,
And some of the players that you like, you don't have the same affinity for them.
Right.
Todd Gurley, Mike Evans, situationally, knees with the running back, and so now you're diversifying almost because you kind of have to.
Yeah,
you're getting Michael Thomas instead of Mike Evans. You're getting, I don't know what running back, I'm trying to think of that now, Devin Singletary maybe, let's say, but you're going after different guys because your hand was forced a little bit.
Yeah, I have Chubb everywhere. Chubb right now is like a guy, because I drafted him in a lot of leagues.
Guys, man.
Yeah,
Michael
but I have
Thomas,
Chubb.
Nick Chubb, you bastard.
I have Chubb. But you know what? It is funny. In my home league right now, this is the first time since he's come into the league that I don't have Gurley on my roster right now. And it's kind of weird. But so we did have one more trade here that involved Joe Mixon, and then we're going to wrap up everything and go to the Patreon show to do some of these other trades.
This is a league me and Jeremy are in. You aren't invited.
Holy shit.
Oh, I'm going to cry. Go ahead.
Manziel Meth Heads.
Right now I'm already fine. I'm not in there. Go ahead.
Wait, why do I know that? I won it 2 years in a row.
See, maybe if I was in it, he wouldn't have won it 2 years in a row.
His team's good though, man. He has a good team. I got lucky, is what I got.
It's a 12-team Superflex Devy. I think there's 38 rostered.
Thank
Devy
God
players.
I'm not in that league.
So yeah, under 40 anyway.
38 Devy players. I'm glad I'm not in there.
Shut up. You two and IDP and Debbie. Let's let them finish.
Oh my God.
Start 2 tight ends. It's a 0.25 PPC, 1 point PPR for running back. Yeah, and start 2 tight ends. I said that, right?
Yeah,
you did.
Superflex, Devy, start 2 tight ends, 0.225.
Wait, one more time.
Oh my
what's
God.
funny is
I'm laughing because
playing Dynasty, I was so missionary. I was like, 1 quarterback, nothing else. Yeah, because that's how they play real football. You don't have real football with two quarterbacks on the field. Why would you have two quarterbacks?
Oh my God.
Premium. What is that? That's just stupid. I don't want to do two tight ends.
It is funny how much everything's evolved. But also this trade is kind of funny too. So go ahead.
One of us gave up Joe Mixon and a 2021 fifth rounder.
So Joe Mixon.
For Miles Sanders, Trey Sermon, Ohio State running back, the Ohio State.
Thank you.
Brashard Perryman and a 2020 507.
So let me just say one thing. You said a 2021 fifth rounder, who cares? But even more so, if you're telling me people have 38 Devy players on their rosters,
yeah, exactly.
Those fifth-round picks must be worthless.
Yeah, I mean, that's not that deep, man. We're in deeper. I think we're in deep.
I mean, that's like 3 rounds deep in Devy.
Okay,
God, I have drafts where we go 8, 10, 12 rounds down. I mean, there's not a ton of held Devy players or owned Devy players, so you still get really good players in the first round. But Mike, I want you to tell. Which side did Shane acquire? What did he trade away and what did he get? Tell me what you think.
Okay, first of all, though, I was talking about the 5th rounds, because if you're saying 3 rounds of Devy, then you're talking about the 8th round of a rookie draft. I don't care about the 5th round picks.
Gotcha.
You know, that was my point. And then for me to guess this, Trey Sermon, what year is he in college?
He will be a senior, is that right?
Yeah, he's got a year at Ohio State.
So he's still got another year. Okay. I think it used to be that I would have said right away that Shane was getting Miles Sanders because of the Eagles and all that stuff. But based on all these conversations we've had, I think Shane traded that stuff away to get Joe Mixon.
Wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why I asked it, because I'm like, I was surprised too that this trade happened today in our league, and I didn't want to spoil the fun.
Oh,
but it's surprising, right, to see what he gave away and what he acquired, because he got a Devy player, Brashard Perriman. He did get his boy Miles Sanders, but isn't that interesting that you thought it was the other side?
I did, because he's been talking about Joe Mixon for days, you know. So he's sitting there shaking his head. I know.
Every trade's different.
Apparently, yeah.
Each league is its own little microcosm. It's its own.
That's my thing, man. I tell people that. You know that when we try to make trades with some of these guys, and they're like, "Oh man," but the market, the market for Michael Thomas. No, man, the market for Michael Thomas. He's great, but it changes from league to league.
Yeah,
it depends on what market you're talking about. It's true. Not static.
Yeah,
you can't just plug it in a calculator today and we make the trade on Friday. That shit changes.
So it is funny, but so I guess
Trey Sanders should be pretty good, hopefully.
Trey Sermon, you mean?
Trey Sermon, Sermon? He'll be fine as a starter at Ohio State. Yeah,
sure. But the thing is, it's funny. Then my first thought was that it would be Sanders, but I convinced myself based on all the other conversations, it's the other way around. But even with these stupid, I'm sorry. I say stupid the same way you say stupid IDP. The stupid Devy things, Trey Sanders may be good at Ohio State, but that's not going to help my fantasy team. So, but hey,
it's Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon, guys, yeah.
Oh, so wait, right. So that time I said Trey Sanders the way he said. So all right, but yeah, Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon may be good for Ohio State, but
the picks, like you said, are a wash. Shane's getting the 2025th this year instead of the 5th he's given away, which might even be lower, and it's next year. So you just say cancel those out. He's given up Joe Mixon, but he's bringing in 2 running backs and a backup wide receiver. And then you know what? I'm not so sure I want Joe Mixon over Miles Sanders, to be quite honest. I think if it was just Mixon for Sanders like that Shane might have done the right thing, because we don't know. I mean, Sanders is a pretty good running back, and he plays for the Eagles. And I just think that he kind of got the icing on the cake with Trey Sermon. Maybe he pans out to be a decent running back too or something in the NFL. But yeah, I was surprised. I knew he liked Sanders, but I was surprised at how this shaped up. It's interesting to me that Shane pulled this off. Good job.
It's funny too, because you sucked me into it too by having Shane have that whole conversation prior to it about, hey, I don't care about the guys.
Organic, I do the trade on his own.
Yeah,
I wondered if you might not know which side was his.
No,
that's cool.
Especially
sometimes we know right away. I was hoping you didn't realize Freebase, that great name for Manziel meth heads, was Shane's Shane's team name.
Freebase is his team name? No, that's funny.
Drug addict league.
Yeah, I get it.
For Johnny Manziel.
I get it. All right.
Rest in peace, Johnny. But real quick, so, Miles Sanders only had 6 touchdowns last year on 229 touches.
Uh-huh.
That dude is in for some, here comes a fun word, positive regression.
Oh.
Yeah, and I like to say positive regression, and I don't care if that makes analytical people angry, because to me, you should at least tell people which way the regression's going. But yeah, he only had 6 touchdowns on 229 touches.
Oh, okay. So
I
then
like to say it because it confuses people. They're like, you're like positive regression, and they're like, wait a second, regression is negative. You're saying positive, negative? Wait, you just totally blew my mind.
Well, listen,
when you go to accounting and it's the whole debit credit thing, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
I've learned this incorrectly my whole life. No wonder Americans can't keep our money straight. You're telling us to use the wrong terms.
all
You
right.
know what would be a fun class at college to take with Shane? It'd be a class where you talk about similes, metaphors, idioms, like those figurative language kind of classes, because you can just have a freaking blast talking to him about that shit all day.
Well, you know what is funny? We're going to wrap up right now, but speaking of what you just said, I saw Shane write something on Twitter this week that my wife actually mentioned about the whole 2 spaces after a period thing,
Yeah.
and you were so happy about it.
That's a win for all of us. Yes.
I don't edit anymore, and now.
Now they do it. Yeah.
Now they do it, yeah. Like, you know what, really? Thanks.
So listen,
2 spaces after a period was just one space too many.
especially on Twitter when you only have a certain amount of characters. So listen,
Right.
We've had a big show here with Mike and with all the trades and with all the news, but we're still going to keep going. So all of you patrons, get ready. We're going to do a Patreon show. We got a bunch of more trades, including the Carson Wentz trade that Jeremy alluded to before. So go check us out on iTunes at DynastyTradesHQ. Check us out. Give us a rate and review. Check us out on Twitter at DynastyTradesHQ. And hey, we love you guys. We'll talk to you guys next week, and say goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you out there. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye. I'll talk to you on the other side, folks.